Good morning everyone, I hope we are live. I hope you can see me. I completely forgot to send out the reminder to say that I'm going live in half an hour. We're going live at 10:30. So I'm sorry about that. I hope you are finding me. So I'm going to take a little bit of time for people to hop on and find me. Hopefully you can start seeing me now. I know there's a little bit of a delay sometimes. But yeah, I hope you'll find me. If you have found me, then don't forget to say good morning and maybe give me a wave or give me a hello. I hope you are doing really well today. Looking forward to day 3 of the workshop. Again, I found myself from yesterday, but not to say. Oh, technology. Even if you think you've got it, it seems to change quite regularly, so I'm not going to worry too much. I can see people hopping on now. Say good morning, don't forget to say hi, and if you are watching on the replay, then still say hello. I really love reading your comments and seeing your beautiful artwork. Some of the pieces that people are posting up are just phenomenal, and also the pieces that they've gone back to and then added to using some of the techniques that we talked about yesterday and the first day. So, I mean, the difference is amazing, and I'm so glad that you are seeing results, because I really wanted you to start implementing these things so that you start seeing results straight away, and then that you're able to really feel inspired to keep going. That's what it's all about, really. I'm just going to check some comments. People are just hopping on now. Good morning, Caroline. Here with tea and toast. Oh, I'm a bit jealous. Oh, I could just fancy a cup of tea right now. Morning, Mandy. Morning, Maxine. Hello, Marilyn. Good to see you. Hope you are doing well this morning. Good morning, Kate. Morning, sunshine. Oh, that's lovely. That reminds me of that lovely song. Good morning, Jackie. I hope you are well. How's everyone doing today? It's a little bit grey here in Bristol. I don't know about you, but for me, actually, it's a positive because I can see the screen a little bit more easily. So there's always a silver lining to everything, isn't there? And I think we might just go out for a walk in the rain later anyway, regardless. Good morning, Ingrid, Lucy, lovely to see you. Good morning, Lorna. Nice to see you all. Hope you're doing okay today. Lovely to see so many of your colour charts coming in yesterday. I thought, if nothing else, what a pretty way to fill the feed. It was also a really fantastic kind of mindful exercise. I don't know about you, but I found it so relaxing and therapeutic, just filling in the little circles, or if you had little squares, or just kind of scribbling with the pencil, and it just, yeah, it's lovely and relaxing and mindful. I just think it's amazing. In Aylesbury today, Pam, good morning. Raining, snowing here in the Highlands. How lovely. We had some on Sunday and it was so exciting, but it's gone now. We've just got 2 balls that are left of the snowmen that we built, and that's it. Everything's gone, unfortunately. So don't forget to say hi. Don't forget to give me a wave, even if you're watching on the replay. Just a few things to go through before we get started with today's content. A little bit of housekeeping. Competition. I think people are doing everything that I said in the email. I hope it makes sense. I know it's not easy, and the tech side is actually the most mind-boggling of everything, but just to be clear, to enter the competition, you get 1 entry for a like or a love on every video. You get another entry for a comment, so you'll be entered twice, and then you'll get 3 entries if you post some of your work. Now, it doesn't have to be a complete colour chart. It doesn't have to be completely filled in worksheet, but what I want to see is that you are starting to kind of implement the techniques that we've been talking about. That's what it's all about, really. And don't forget to put the hashtag colour pencil workshop, so CPW day 1, day 2, day 3. That just makes it easier for me to do a little search in the search bar, and then it pulls it all up instead of trying to find it. And I don't know about you, but I find Facebook, the notifications, sometimes it tells me twice the same one, or 3 times, and sometimes it doesn't tell me at all. And also they get lost in the feed. So yeah, just to say that if you do put the hashtag, it just makes it so much easier for me to see what you are posting. Hello Jane, good morning Vanessa, good morning. Almost noon in Belgium, wow. Yeah, I suppose it would be an hour forward. I hope you're all doing well. Anyway, to carry on, I just wanted to talk about the membership quickly because I've had a few questions about it, and I thought it might be a good opportunity to just answer some of those, and it might be questions that you have in mind if you're kind of on the fence about whether you should join the Discovering the Artist Within You Art and, oh, it's such a mouthful, Art and Mindset membership. The doors opened yesterday and I've had some lovely people joining already. It's so exciting to see the enthusiasm, not just for coloured pencils but just for art in general and how it makes you feel, because that's kind of what it's all about for me. Somebody asked if all of the tutorials are 4 to 6 hours long, and I can completely understand why that sounds really intimidating and probably freaked a couple of you out, because that just sounds like a lot of work. Although, to be fair, I've been talking for 2 hours every day and that seems to have flown. It might not for you, but it has for me. I can't believe it when I look at the clock and I've been talking for nearly 2 hours. So actually, time does really fly quickly. The first thing I would say is I break the tutorials, the long ones, down into 3 parts because they're more bite-sized, they're less intimidating, and I think sometimes you do need a little breather to come back with fresh eyes, and maybe your wrist is aching, maybe your hand's aching, and maybe you're going a bit cross-eyed like I do. So first of all, I do break them down into bite-sized chunks. Also, there are other tutorials that aren't as long as that I'm adding. And actually, this workshop over the last 3 days has been really an eye-opener for me, because it enables me to see what people are actually looking for, and I've been able to actually connect with people and ask what they might like. So I'm taking all of that on board, and I know that the membership will evolve over the next kind of few months, years, whatever. I'm really passionate about creating this place where people have not everything they need, because I think that's a bit too much to ask, but to have a real support system, and to be able to really learn and to really get some useful tips and techniques to push their art forward, so they start seeing some real results really quickly. That's what I'm looking for. So actually what I'm going to do is add a few more shorter tutorials into the membership, and more kind of maybe looser, maybe not so much detail, maybe nice little projects that you can that we can talk about values, lights and darks, and how you don't have to really put all that detail in to get a really great result, a great illusion of detail. It's not all about every single pencil stroke, because some people aren't into that, and I get that. Sometimes I'm not. Sometimes I love going as deep in as I can, because it kind of fills my mind. It's therapeutic with that pencil stroke, and sometimes I want something to be completed a lot more quickly. So I'm definitely going to be putting more of that into the membership. The other thing I wanted to say was, some people have been asking if it is all about realism, and that might not be something that they really want to achieve. And I've definitely, realism for me is my kind of interpretation of it looking real. So I want fur to look soft. I want fur to look like it makes sense on the animal that I'm drawing. Same with the hair, same with skin. But it's not all about making it look photorealistic for me, because actually I love to see the pencil strokes. I love to see that it's a drawing, not a photo. And I think you can enhance a photo. I think photography's it's a whole different art altogether. But when you take a photo, you can add bits, you can take things away, you can enhance things, you can up the colour. I know you can do that on Photoshop, but I think you can play with it however which way you like. So actually it's not just about realism. Somebody's asked about kind of more loose impressionistic or more abstract animals, or a little bit kind of more of a looser, maybe adding mediums together. So mixed media, watercolours work brilliantly with coloured pencils. I use them a lot together. You can use coloured pencils over pastel pencils. You can use coloured pencils over pan pastels, over acrylics. You can use them in so many different ways. I really love the loose watercolour with a little bit of tightness of detail in certain areas. So maybe you wanted a looser background, and then you can have a really detailed bird with some lovely blurry flowers in the background. So all of this stuff really appeals to me, and it's not just about the tutorials that I'm adding to the membership, but also if you're working on your own pieces, then I am going to be there to ask questions on that too. I want you to be able to send me your work and say, Sam, I need some help on this. I can't get this effect. I can't I can't understand why I'm feeling so stuck on this little section, and I'm there to help you with that too. So it's more of a all-rounded support, having someone to just ask questions when you need them, and maybe a quick question that you just need answers to, then move you on in the piece that you're drawing. It doesn't have to be the tutorials that I'm doing, but they are there for you to go back over. They are pieces that I've really enjoyed working on. I love wildlife, I love animals, I love nature, and that leads on to botanicals, it leads on to birds, and it leads on to, you know, I love to draw fruit and flowers, and maybe draw a lovely droplet on a piece of fruit and try and make, I think I said it in the video if you've watched it, the membership video on the opt-in page, that I just love to maybe see if I can make a lemon segment or something look realistic and juicy. So it's all about different techniques that you can apply to anything. So, you know, I just wanted to mention that. If you have any other questions that you just would like to ask about what's in the membership, it's a shame I can't kind of show you what's in it, but I'm more than happy to answer questions. Possibly send me an email, because it does get lost in the notifications, or send me like a direct message. That might be a little bit easier. And if you have any other questions, then great. I've got some bonuses if you sign up for the first 15 people, and actually I've only got 5 spaces left in that now, where you'll get a one-to-one call with me if you want it. You might not, where we can really discuss what you want going forward, and maybe you can show me some of your pieces if you're stuck on certain things, and we can dive straight in and start helping you rectify any problems that you're having. So that's there. Also the ability to be able to input into the membership as well for the first few members. And also the lovely Emma Kerridge from the Coloured Pencil Shop, who's actually signed up to the membership yesterday, has offered 10% off the Coloured Pencil Shop for the Art and Mindset membership members. So how amazing was that? You're going to actually get 10% off the Coloured Pencil Shop, so any supplies that you buy. What a great bonus that is. So thank you so much to Emma, she's fantastic, and the shop is lovely, the service is amazing. She sells open stock, and she's kind of building on her range of accessories that she's got there too. She's selling quite a big range of different pencils, so there's something for everybody there, and her prices are great anyway, so another 10% off. What a bonus that is. Just fantastic. So diving into the content for today, I think I'll just have a little look at some questions. Just making a cup of coffee. Licked. Marie, licked? Have I missed something here? Do you have downloadable line drawings with your tutorials? Yes, I put the line art up and the reference photo with every tutorial that I do, because I do understand that it's not just about getting the accurate sketch. That's a whole different ball game, getting an accurate initial sketch. And that's definitely some videos that I want to be making to go into the membership. But I thought if you have the line art there, then you can dive straight into the rendering, the coloured pencil work, and not worry too much about the initial sketch, because my goodness, that's so intimidating to try and do it all in one go. I understand people sometimes just want to give it a go, and good for you. There's no rules, but it's nice to have it there just in case you would like it. How long will the membership be opened? It's probably going to be open for about 10 days. I'm going to be opening and closing doors throughout the year, so it's not your only opportunity to join. But what I would say is there's a lot of advantages to joining now, because there's the more content that goes in and how things change, that the prices are pretty good at the moment. Coming from somebody who taught classes, Pilates classes, and trained hypnotherapist, and how much I was kind of charging per hour, you're going to be getting so much content per month for just the price of a takeaway, less than that really. So actually joining now, you'll definitely get more kind of more of a lower price at the moment, because prices might rise in the future. Obviously there's going to be more content added, but you do have the ability to put your input into it, which I'm not going to be able to do if there's more members in the group, obviously. So it's probably going to be opened for 10 days this time, but there is going to be an opportunity to join again in the future. It's not going to be closed indefinitely, and I'm also probably going to be running some workshops, more of a kind of a package, so probably paid, a bit of both. I'm going to be probably running some more of these free ones, definitely, but maybe some paid more in depth and kind of more niched down into certain topics, because there is so much more that I could share that I cannot fit into these 3 days. And I've had so many questions about different things that people would like to know, and I would love to be able to answer every single question, but I can't believe how long I've talked for these days anyway. I was thinking maybe 45 minutes, an hour each day, and it's double that. So there's still so much more to cover, and I would love to dive into that for you. What grade of pencil do you use for the line drawings? I really, I love the bog standard HB graphite pencil that you have probably knocking around the house. I've got some of those black and yellow ones that are actually called school pencils. I think that's fantastic. And what I would say with the line art, once you've got your initial sketch down on the paper, to dab it away with the kneadable eraser so that the graphite's not going to show through your colour pencils, especially because you're going to be working in layers. If you lay colour pencil over the top of graphite, you're not going to be able to remove it, and it might show through. So what I do is get your initial sketch down, and then dab it gently, you can rub it slightly with the kneadable eraser just to pull up most of the graphite, so you've just got a very faint line showing through. I definitely recommend to do that. Don't press too hard, you don't want to indent the paper, because then you'll have an embossed line all the way around your work, and if you're drawing fur and the fur overlaps the outline, then you're going to have this horrible line that's going to be really difficult to fill. And also if you add more pencil, then you'll get a darker colour. So it's, yeah, I just don't press too hard. Light hand, so that's good practice for a light hand. Difficult for me, who's naturally heavy-handed, so it's something I've really had to practice. So yes, that's what I'd say for that. We'll sort out in the morning. I think I've missed some bits actually. The messages just tend to skim up, and then I can only see the last 4, which is not great. And also it's different messages on different devices, which is a challenge in itself really. The other question I just wanted to briefly go over before we start in today's is somebody was asking about colour picking. They're finding it a little bit daunting, the fact that you know, maybe I've been going a little bit too fast for some people, and I tried to pitch it in the middle, so it was for beginners, but also moving on and trying to get as much in as I could to help you with people that are already kind of started on their colour pencil journey. What I would say about the colours is some of it is going to be just practice. It's going to be getting used to your coloured pencils, whichever set you're using, finding that kind of familiarity with them, getting to know them. I've been using polychromos now for nearly 5 years, and I don't even really have to think about what colour I need. I just can see it, and I'll know which one I'm going to pick. Saying that, when I downloaded this colour pencil chart and I started filling in the colours, I realised how many I was missing. So I did a big order with Emma and managed to fill them in, because I did want a full one to show you. And some of the colours, I thought that would have been such a great colour to have for that specific drawing that I was doing. For example, I didn't realise I was missing the burnt umber, which is a pencil I've had before, but I'd run out and forgotten all about it. And there was also way more greens than I had, which would have been amazing for the cat eye that I was drawing. And what else? Oh, there's some other colours that I've never even used, like the, what was it called? The Caput Mortem. I've got the Caput Mortem, but I didn't have the Caput Mortem Violet, so that's a whole new colour that I didn't have. The benefit of these colour pencil charts is that you can put your pencils down and then you can hold it up to your reference photo and just see if they match. It's just a kind of helpful tool to be able to do that. The whole point of the colour wheel was really to see what happens when you add white, when you add grey, when you add black. Just a little bit of understanding of how colours work, how colours blend together. So if you mix primary colours together, you get secondary, and what happens when you add certain other tones. The little key words that you might need. And also we talked about complementary colours. So if you're drawing like an orangey yellow cat, if you look across the colour wheel and add a little bit of purple or blue, then you're going to see your colours just pop, and they're going to be much more vibrant. You're going to have a much more realistic shadow, which is what we talked about. So it's just these little techniques, little tweaks that you can do to your drawings to make them really, really stand out and to look interesting and exciting. So that's what that was all about, really. Today we're going to be diving into techniques, and I'm going to be demonstrating a little bit more about what we talked about. I'm hoping to bring everything together that we've discussed. We're going to be doing fur. Hopefully we're going to have time for all of this. Fur, skin, hair, I'm going to talk about glazing, and I'm really going to be showing you and demonstrating the techniques of the fur. And I'd love for you to ask questions as I go, just so that you can, well, you know, it's a little bit of a introduction as to what the membership is really. If you're seeing a technique and you think, oh, I don't get that bit, can you just explain it a little bit better, or can you show me? That's what this is all about today. So I'm really excited to dive in. That's answered my question. Oh, good. I'm glad. I'm glad, Marie. Exciting. Thanks, Sam. I've answered that one. So I think what we'll do is we will dive in, and I will start demonstrating some of the techniques that I do for my fur to begin with, because a lot of people have been asking about fur, and I think we can kind of talk about feathers in that as well and how they differ. So what I'm going to do is bring up my my reference photos that I've got, bring that over so I've got something to look at, and then I'm going to move you guys, turn you around, and then we are all set to have a little demonstration. I hope I've got all of my coloured pencils ready. We'll get rid of this eye. There was our little swatches from yesterday, how we blended the yellow and the blue to make green. And somebody was asking about how do you know which colours to lay down on top of each other, and I've got to say it is a little bit of trial and error. But if you've got your colour chart and if you've got your colour theory, then you kind of understand a little bit more about what happens if you mix one colour over the top of the other. You can gauge what's going to happen before you do it, so you don't make so many mistakes by looking at what happens when you mix colours together. So we've got this cat drawing. I've actually added a few layers of fur. I'm going to move these pencils a minute because I've just banged my arm. I've got way too many things on my table. Excuse the noise a sec. I'm just going to lay my pencils down. So I'm using mainly polys today. I'm adding a couple of luminance pencils as well because they just don't have the same. Well, they have really great muted colours in the luminance, and sometimes you can't find them in the polys. I've ordered a book on basic colouring pencil book from, oh, that sounds exciting. Let us know how that is. Are coloured pencils good for landscapes? Yes and no. I think it depends on the look that you're going for. If you're going for more of a loose look, then I would definitely recommend using some kind of solvent with that. And I talked about the Zestic pencil blend, didn't I? Because you're going to be able to then speed it up and add speed it up and be able to get rid of the graininess really quickly without adding lots and lots and lots of layers. So what you're doing is you're taking a few steps away. It's good for detail, obviously. With the pet portraits that I do, with the commissions, the reason I haven't done many backgrounds is because it takes just as long as the actual subject, and so it would go upwards to kind of 25, 30, 40 hours work, and obviously that would actually cost a lot more to do. So but give it a go. I mean, you could do little mini ones to start with and then get bigger as you get speedier, and use all of the techniques that we've showed you to speed it up a little bit too. So yes, give it a go. Right, this eye, I've put down about, 5 or 6 layers, and I've added solvent to it, and you can still see a little bit of graininess there. Can you see? But the great thing with solvent is that you can add coloured pencil on top of it. Now, where's my... I knew this would happen. I'm going to be hunting for pencils for ages. So this is my dark sepia pencil, which I really love. And what you can see, hopefully you can see, is that you can start adding pencil on top and start darkening up in the areas that need darkening. And when I talked about values yesterday, it's really important to get your darks as dark as they need to be to make your drawings pop. And you need to be a little bit brave with this, because sometimes you start and you think, oh my goodness, that's just going to ruin it, I'm going to do something. But actually I do think that it just makes such a difference, and I think you're going to love the results rather than hate them. So look, I'm going in with the black now. Sometimes it calls for black. I'm going to put a bit of paper over this eye because I don't want to smudge it. Also, I've got to say, with the solvent, it actually enables you to add probably more layers to your... I wonder if I should turn off my lights. Because it's not showing it for what it is. It's reflecting. Is that better? Does that make a bit more sense? Can you see? So I'm darkening up all around the edge of the eye. Just going to add some black, because I've added quite a few layers already, and I want you to see what a difference this makes if you add a few more layers. Can you see how that's really darkening it up? The solvent works brilliantly with this. Like I said, oh, the door's going again. Is Adam going to hear it? Yes, he is. Bless him. He's upstairs with the kids, trying to keep them entertained while Mummy does these workshops. Can you see how that's really darkened everything up, and it's kind of made the eye pop out a little bit? Does that make sense? The pupil, another really important part to darken up. And then it's going to have much more of an effect on that catch light in the eye. That's going to stand out a lot more. I'm not even looking at my reference photo. Right, this catch light here, another thing I would say is to add a little bit more detail into the catch light, because it's generally not just white. I'm going to find my greys. And for something that's actually a reflection and blue, I would go in with your cold greys and I would soften all around. And then I would add a little bit of detail in. So there's a bit of a cloud showing. There's a cloud here. There's actually a line going up and down into here. And then I'm going to add a little bit more of the darker coal greys. So I think this, I know we're not doing the fur right now, but I think this is a good technique for anything that you're trying to create a smooth texture. So if you're drawing fruit, for example, if you are drawing leaves, any type of botanicals, add a little blue. This one is actually called sky blue. How perfect is that? And then I'm going to add a little bit of colour to this part, because I want to get rid of the graininess. Now I've got a few layers in, I can press a little bit harder to get rid of any graininess. This is the Terracotta, another beautiful pencil that I use a lot. I can just add a little bit more and be a bit more confident about where these colours are going to go, because I've already laid down a lot of them. Adding a bit more green. And what this is called is glazing. It's not really adding any detail. What I'm doing is I'm darkening and I'm adding to the pigment, but I'm not losing the detail that I've got underneath. Does that make sense? You can see that I've added quite a few lines and things and different colours into the eye. And so what I'm doing is I'm using a light colour, but a colour that's in the eye, to smooth everything, so that the eye is going to look less grainy. It's going to look a lot more kind of shiny and a bit watery is what we want. but we're not going to be losing any of that lovely detail that we've added. So I'm using a relatively light hand on the lighter sections. I can go a little bit darker on the darker sections, and I'm using that circular motion that we talked about yesterday and going over the whole of the area without losing the detail, but I'm smoothing everything. Can you see the difference? So there's the grain, and then that's a little bit smoother. I would still keep building it up a little bit. I would keep going with the detail. I would probably go back in a little bit more. One thing I would say with shadows, you can see this line here is pretty crisp. And when you've got a dark shadow like this, you've generally got a little bit of a transition between the darkest part of the shadow and where it goes down into the eye. Now, I always have a look at that top lid. So imagine this is lying over the eye, which it's going to be doing. It's going to be standing forward and the eye is going to be set back a little bit. So there's going to be a shadow cast no matter where the cat is, unless you're obviously doing a side view. There's going to be a shadow cast under the eyelid. And also to make the eyeball look round, which is what we want, there's going to be shadows at the edges. And there's going to be a little shadow under here. There's not going to be such a dark shadow. And that's probably going to be the same with every single eye that you draw. So just keep that in mind. You darken the edges, you darken under the eyelid, and you want to make it kind of pop forward. Does that make sense? So just standing back a little bit. That looks like now, I hope the camera's catching it, it now looks like the eye is set back in the fur. Does that make sense? It doesn't look like it's just an object stuck on. It looks like it's part of the cat. Now the fur, I have added a few layers. This definitely isn't finished, and I think what I'm going to do is continue with the fur and show you how I build it up. Would you like me to start again, or would you like me to go over the top of this, or would you like me to do a bit of both? I will kind of wait and see what you say. I can't even see my screen. With anything, and I don't know if I covered this clearly yesterday, with anything that I'm drawing, people have told me to draw my cat's eyes as they are stunning, but I'm too scared. What are you scared of the most? Is it that they look too detailed? Is it that they look just way too liney? But what I would say is, instead of being scared by that, be inspired by it and think about how you can use your pencils to create that illusion of detail without being overwhelmed by it and bombarded by it. Because actually, cat's eyes are a fantastic study to do. They're very different to dog's eyes, and a really good practice for lots of the different techniques that we're using, which is why I actually thought of doing a cat eye study for this demonstration. Bit of both, if you please. Brilliant. Right, okie dokie. Right, I think I'll start at the beginning and then I'll move across so I'm not taking forever to finish this one. Does that make sense? So what I'd always do, like I was going to say, I keep losing track of what I'm talking about. What I do with every single thing I draw is that I start with a base layer, and I always look to see the lightest colour that I can see in my reference photo. And I've got my reference photo on my computer. And for you guys that are not familiar with your pencils yet, and it will come, don't worry, it's not, it won't take long because you will love them so much that you'll be using them all the time. If you don't know which one to pick, always go with an ivory. You can't go wrong. You just can't go wrong with ivory. So we will start with, look how grainy that eye looks compared to that one now. I hope the camera's catching it. I would always start with, see how my pencil sketch is really dark? I hope the camera's picking it up. I would go in with my kneadable eraser and I would dab away the pencil because I don't want that showing through, and this fur is really quite light. I'm not going to go on to that eye because I've demonstrated on that one and I will be here all day. So what I would do is I would use the technique that we did yesterday. Where's my piece of paper? Do you remember we talked about back and forward, you end up with this horrible kind of scribbly mess. If you do lovely small circles, apart from the 2 dents there in the paper, you end up with a lovely smooth surface to start with. They're really detailed. Yes, that's great though. That's really great. Do it, go for it. And if you want to send me a message with your progress and want some pointers, then by all means do that. I'm more than happy to help. Right, so use the ivory if you don't know which one to use. Can't go wrong with an ivory. You don't want to use a white because you can't see it for a start, and also it will knock out any colours going forward, whereas ivory's got a nice bit of warmth to it. It's got a little bit of a cream yellow undertone, which is what we want. So what I do is, somebody asked how much of a section do I do in one go? And what I tend to do is what feels comfortable in my hand. So for me, that feels quite nice. And so I'll start with that. It's manageable. It makes me feel like I'm getting a section done. If the fur is very complicated, like in a tabby, and this is obviously a tabby, so we've got landmarks that we can work with, I might put one of the stripes in just so I know where I'm going, if that makes sense. So I might go off on a little bit of a tangent and do a line up here and then add that in just so that it enables me to work out where I'm going. So I'm using small circles, well, quite big actually, covering a bit of a bigger surface area. This is actually on A4, so it's quite a big eye study. I started with a robin technique, was all wrong, but learnt so much from it. Was that the robin that I did, or was it another robin? I bet it wasn't. I bet it was great. I bet it didn't go wrong. You do learn, like nothing is a failure, is it? You always learn from it. You only fail if you don't do it. That's the only way that you can fail, if you just don't give it a go. You do not fail if you give anything a try. I'm all for pushing yourself, not too hard, but just pushing yourself a little bit out of your comfort zone, because that's how you grow. And I think it's important to keep growing and keep learning and keep inspired, really. Right, here's my reference photo. This part of the fur is actually pretty light here, and then it starts to darken up here. So what I would do then is go in with my next lightest colour and start to build up the layers. For me, I'm going to start using the dark Naples ochre. Look how similar these are. This is the same. That's why they're so similar. And this is the light yellow ochre. So what if you aren't any good at drawing? In my membership, I always supply the line art so that you have got that there if you just want to concentrate on the coloured pencils. And what I would say is one step at a time. The initial sketch takes years of practice. You can't get that down in a day. So that's why I supply the line art, because I think it takes the pressure off, definitely. And possibly try something that's not too complicated. This is basically just a teardrop shape. So break it down. You could draw a circle, and then you could add a triangle and a triangle to this end. You can't go too wrong with something like a cat's eye, because actually no one's going to tell you whether you've got it completely accurately. As long as it is the shape that it needs to be, as long as it's in proportion, then you can't really go far wrong. I'm talking too much and I'm not good doing anything. So I'm going to start adding some of the dark Naples ochre. And this is a lovely warm yellowy colour. I'm going to go in a little bit. I can't hold it the whole time. I'm going to go in and just show you what techniques I'm using. Think about the length of the fur. Think about the direction of the fur. You can see with the eye, it's like a clock, isn't it? It goes all that way, all the way around, and it changes direction the whole time with a slight curve. So all the way around, you're changing the direction of the fur. Make sure you don't go vertical or horizontal. It curves all the way around, and you'll find, I found with this part, that you get a especially this bit around the eye, you get fur going up, you get fur going that way, you get it coming that way. that can be a little bit tricky to begin with. You can use graphite transfer paper to get the line dry. I've not ever tried that. I've seen it and I've heard about it. The only thing that worries me a little bit is that is it messy? Like, do you end up smudging graphite all over the place, or is it really clean? I don't know. I'm quite a messy person, so I don't know if I'd get into a bit of a pickle with it. But of course, it's a tool. It's there. If you know, these things are there to help you with whatever problem that you're having. You know, I really don't understand people that say don't use these things because it's cheating or whatever. Are these people using mangles in their kitchen to do their washing, or have they got a washing machine? I mean, why wouldn't you do it if it's convenient for you? Why wouldn't you do it? And if you want to practice your freehand skills, then do that, you know, as well. You put some time aside to work on your freehand. God, there's no rules. I just think there's so much stigma attached to art, and actually the point I'm trying to get across is that art should be fun. You shouldn't have so much pressure. It should be all about the way it makes you feel when you're doing it. That's the important part. It's not all about the end result and how good or bad the piece was. It's whether you enjoyed it. Did it take your mind off of things? Did it make you feel good? Did it calm you down? Did it lower your blood pressure? Did it make you breathe? That's what this is all about, especially now, especially in this horrible situation that we're all in. Can you see that I'm starting to get a little semblance of fur? Make your own graphite paper. Rub, oh, hang on, what's this? Rub hard. Oh, that sounds interesting. Rub hard with graphite stick over sheet of paper, then rub hard with kitchen roll until, it won't let me see anymore, until no more comes off. Mess free when wow, that's a brilliant tip. So have a little look in the comments and see what Leslie said. Thank you, Leslie, that's really helpful. Also gridding. Yep, gridding is really good. You get those in the in books to learn how to draw, don't you? I had that when I was young. And gridding, what put me off gridding was the fact that I have to make a grid and draw the lines, and then how do you get rid of the lines? But now you can do it on your computer, I think, where you it grids it up for you. Do you still you probably still have to draw on the paper though to put your grids across? But I've been watching the Portrait Artist of the Year, and a lot of the artists were gridding up with the portraits, because faces are obviously, if you do a line out of place, then they look completely different. So I always find portraits pretty difficult. I'm a bit hit and miss. Probably 1 in 5 looks like the person. The rest look a little bit of a dodgy version of that person. So I'm a bit hit and miss. Maybe I should start gridding to get a bit better at it. So that's definitely a method. This part is quite light, so I'm going to go around that, and I'm now using the burnt ochre, and I'm thinking about the direction of the fur, and I'm thinking about the length of the fur. This is quite a small pencil, but I'm trying to hold it midway down so I'm not adding too much pressure. Putting a grid over my photos on my iPhone. Oh my gosh, I really need to get going on this technology. I'm rubbish. I'm actually using a really old phone at the moment because my phone overheated and then turned off, and then it's just sat around. So I've got a really old phone right now. Use the Procreate drawing app to draw a line drawing from my photo. I also use the grid app. Wow, all of these things. Downloading art tools and has gridding. Oh my goodness, thank you so much everyone, this is really helpful. There you go. What I would say with gridding is that you might start with smaller boxes, and then as you get more confident, the boxes can get smaller and smaller, bigger and bigger and bigger, if that makes sense. So you're actually having less boxes with more of a area in the middle of it. And you'll need bigger and bigger boxes the more confidence you get, and then you'll end up just having reference points, which is kind of what I do. I measure out how big is that compared to the width of that, Where is it? I hold my pencil for the direction. How many pencil lengths is this eye compared to the gap in the middle? It always should be one eye, which I think I've done a bit wrong. Nearly. And then how many widths of the eye go to the length of the eye? I'm very old school, aren't I? But that's how I find that just really helpful. And I think sometimes what you've always known just feels comfortable, doesn't it? So I'm going to keep building up the layers with this lovely burnt ochre. What I would say about fur is that even if you've got a light section like this, don't leave it completely free, because there's always going to be some little darker strokes of fur, and that's what's going to give it that kind of realistic look, because it blends nicely in. You've also got fur coming around the eye, and you're adding form then, so putting these bottom ones in, we're going to start to create a shape. It's going to look like there's shadow either side of this bit, which is going to make this bit stand forward because it's closer, it's on the nose. And that's what it's all about, getting the illusion of it standing forward or setting something backwards. And that's what's going to give you your 3D look. Jackson's have an app for iPhone. Oh my goodness. Where have I been? I'm kind of archaic. So thank God for you guys. I'm going to do a bit of research into this, and then I can start putting the links up into the group so people know what they need to do. I'm doing same way too, Samantha. What's that measuring? Is that measuring, Julia? Measuring with your pencil. And I say a lot of things that I draw, actually, it doesn't really matter. If I'm doing a pet portrait, obviously it does matter, because it's not going to be their pet if I draw just a cat or a dog. So obviously it takes a lot more time. But some things like an apple or a flower, it doesn't really matter whether it's completely accurate to the reference photo, as long as I follow it more for the light, really. It's good to use modern technology, but even better if you know how to use the traditional methods first. It's nice to have both, I suppose, isn't it? I'm a little bit behind, I think. And I use a paper diary. I don't put any appointments on my phone. I don't like it. I like to write everything down. I've got post-it notes all around me to just remind me what I'm talking about. Other people would have it all kind of up on an app, wouldn't they, or a reminder on there. But I just like, maybe it goes into my brain a little bit better, I don't know, having lists and lists and lists. So I'm just adding this part now, so you can see my pencil strokes, and I'm building up through the colours. If you like the colour that you're using, just keep going over and over it to add the pigment. You don't need to pick a darker colour. You can just keep building it up. You can see I'm doing here. It just keeps building and building. I'm just trying to follow the patterns in the fur. What I'm going to try and do is just get this little bit done so you can see how building it up makes it kind of stand out. We want to darken this bit, but not all over. We just want to do it in certain areas. There are bits of hair that go randomly off, and that's going to add to the realism as well. If you have little flyaway hairs, they're not always going to be perfectly groomed. Just adding a few here. Adding a few of this darker colour into the lighter colour helps as well, with a very, very light hand, just following the direction of the fur. It just helps it to look a bit more cohesive, I think, in the actual end result of the drawing. Otherwise it can look like certain sections aren't joined up to the other ones, and I know a few people have said about that in the past. This bit here is darker down here than it is up here, so that's when I can add a little bit of the darker colour. I'm using the raw umber and just going over, looking at the direction of the fur again, and just adding it into certain areas. Then we talked about going over to soften the pencil strokes, very, very light hand, and I would probably go over with my base layer again, just to smooth everything out. You can also use solvent in this section here. I did over here. I don't think I did at the bottom, or maybe I did, I can't remember. It's a bit of a combination of both. So I'd soften the fur with a light pencil again, and then I'd start building up even more. And keep adding the fur. There's a very, very light bit in there, so I would use my pencil, doing longer circles, covering a big area, and I would blend the edges in too. And then I would go in again. I've got this lovely, where's my, yeah, I'd probably use the burnt ochre again. This fur is actually speckled, and that looks a bit daunting to begin with. So go in with your base layer and add your pencil strokes just wider. If you want to do a pattern, you do them close together. If you do speckled fur, you add them further apart. Try not to make them too uniform, because that's not how fur is. Go in with a very, very light hand and think about the direction and the length of the fur. A lot of people, I see the mistake of adding the pencil length too long, and then you'll end up with a shaggy looking cat, because it sounds obvious, but the longer the pencil strokes, the longer the fur is going to look. Go in with a darker colour and add to that. Again, kind of random. And soften it off with your light colour again, and then keep building. And then you can bring the rest of that in to make it look like it's part of the same thing. Constantly picking up and putting down my pencils. Does that make sense? Is that looking... It's not focusing, rubbish phone. So can you see all of the random pencil strokes in here? So it's not necessarily to do the palest colour under it all. No. It's nicer to work on. What I tend to do is I've done it here, but sometimes I'll go off on a bit of a tangent and realise I haven't put the underlayer down. And it does feel a bit nicer to work on if I have. And what I'll probably do is start and then I'll go over. So I'm kind of adding it as a bit of an afterthought. But I'm constantly building up the layers and then going back over. Does that make sense? This one I've added quite a lot. So I'm going to just keep adding to that just so that you can see it starting to build up a little bit more. It needs a bit more in the lighter areas. And you keep building up the colour and darkening the pigment. Covering it over to make sure that you can keep seeing. So you can see this is the kind of pencil stroke technique for fur, and you can see why it takes so long. So you're building up, softening those edges, darkening up where the shadows need to be. And then I wanted to show you glazing as well, which we talked about in the eye. This part here is quite dark and it needs to be a lot darker than it is, but I don't want to go in with the first strokes and I don't want to keep building up the layers. You do get to a point where actually you've added your detail and the colours are good, but you just want to add a little bit of depth, and I think that's where some of the warm greys especially come in, and some of the lovely earthy browns. A lot of the time I will use my burnt sienna, my dark sienna. I will use my, where's my greys? I will use warm grey. What one should I use? I think I'll use warm grey 4. Yeah, I'll show you the reference photo. It's kind of on my computer. So I'll spin it round in a minute. I'll see if I can get both on. So what I'll do is I'll use my warm grey and I will use those small circles, very, very light hand. And because the warm grey has that browny colour in, then it's going to darken it up nicely and naturally without taking away the detail. This part here is a lot darker than I've drawn it. So I can add to that. I'll go in with my dark sepia and darken this up. And because I've added quite a few layers and because I've added the solvent, I can darken it up quite easily. Just adding the detail around that tear duct area. I've missed a bit of a section out here, so it starts to bring it all together. I'm just using kind of like a sketchy, my dark sepia is so small, kind of a sketchy pencil stroke just to darken everything up. I need to add a little bit of darkness to there because that's looking too bright, and then coming down into the fur. And you can see just going small circles with a very, very light hand just adds a top layer of glaze to add to the intensity of the shadow. Look how that's darkening up. So you want this eye part to look like it's set back. So I'm just going to quickly show you the reference photo. I don't know if I can hold them up together. So that's what I'm drawing. It's looking really dark on here. See, the screens just show very, very different to how it's looking. So that's the reference photo. You might need to go back and pause the video, and then darkening up a little bit in the corner just to make sure that it all stands out. Can you see how that's looking a lot darker and a lot more finished? So we were talking yesterday about possibly not finishing your work, feeling like it's finished, but actually if you spent another hour on it, went back and just deepened the intensity of the shadows, had a little look at the darker parts, do they need a little bit more to make them pop? I could go in with the walnut brown here and just add a little bit into here. Very, very subtle, but it's just going to add a little bit more depth, a little bit of darkness into here. Just that is going to make such a difference, a little bit of darkness there, and it just makes it pop out a little bit more. Adding a bit of darkness under the eye is just going to make that shadow more intense, using a bit of a scratchy back and forth motion, also a little bit of glazing, and that's going to make the waterline stand out a little bit more, just adding a bit more of a darker shadow. Does that make sense? How's that looking? What did you say there? Could we please have the line drawing for this one? Yes, I could do that, couldn't I? I could put that up in the group and you could have a go. Yes, the other thing you can do, talking about blending in between layers, is, like I said, the white, well, white tends to knock out anything that you're drawing. I don't know if you've painted as well, and you, say for example watercolours, if you've got that lovely translucent colour and then you add too much white, it knocks it out, it just makes everything opaque, it knocks everything out. White for me does the same, it knocks out every colour that you've been painstakingly putting underneath. If you change that white colour to a slightly warmer colour, like an ivory, or maybe like an luminance, we're going to talk about skin in a minute, but you've got these beautiful Prima Rose. Look at that, it's like a lovely warm soft colour. That would work really nicely because it doesn't flatten it. White is great, but only in the brightest highlights. So if I was going to go over the top of this catch light with white, can't find any of my whites. Say I was going to use the white Caran d'Ache just to blend everything together, that would be absolutely fine because that would brighten up the white part. But if I was doing this part, I wouldn't want to put white over because it would just knock it flat, definitely. Does that make sense? I hope you've learned something from this this fur tutorial. I'm just a little bit aware that I've been rambling on for hours every day and keeping you, so I'm just going to move on. And if there's any questions about the fur technique that I've used, then please do put them in the comments and I will try and get through them all. Could you use a watercolour pencil? When you say tone it down, what do you mean by toning it down? Do you mean softening? Do you mean blending? Or do you mean glazing? Let me know. I'm going to move on to skin. Thanks, it's very white, very useful. Ah, that's interesting. So that, yeah, that might be a game changer for you. I really hope so. So I've done this really rough lady eye. I haven't finished the eye actually. And what I would say with eyes is that just be a little bit careful with the white of the eye because they're never white. They're always a bit grey. And if you go in with a cold grey, just a cold grey one, and you add some grey to the white of the eye, it just makes it so much more realistic. The other thing I would say is if you're drawing blue eyes, I never draw with blue. That sounds silly, but I always draw with grey. It's a much more subtle blue colour, and when you stand back, it looks like a blue eye. If you put blue in, you could put subtle blue in, but if you put too much blue, it just looks really fake. Photo really useful. Okie dokie, I will do that. Right, so hair, that's a little bit different to fur, and skin is very, very different to fur. So I think I'm going to go for the skin first of all. What I've done with this is I would recommend waxed based pencils for skin, and that's because they're soft. So Prismacolors, Luminance, somebody said the Pablos are wax based. No, they're not well, no, somebody said Arteza are wax based. I didn't know that, so that's a helpful little snippet of information. I didn't know they were wax based. So anything that's softer is much better and much easier to use for skin, because you will find that the polys, they're great for detail like the eye, but for skin I wouldn't recommend it. So what I've done is, it's really rough. You can see how grainy, oh God, my camera's not focusing. Look how grainy that is. What I've done is I've used a combination of burnt siennas and ochres, and the luminants have actually got light flesh and dark flesh now, which is fantastic. I didn't have those when I started drawing skin. So what I do is, again, like I said with the fur, I go in with the lightest colour, and it's never pink. Very, very rarely is there's a little bit of a hint of pink. Obviously it depends on the skin tone, but I would always go in with warmer colours because pink can come across as really orange. I go in with the lightest tone, so I would go in and I would put a light layer of an ochre. What's this one? No, this is Primrose actually. I love this colour, it's fantastic. In the middle of the forehead, there's always a shine or a highlight. So I'd go in with that colour, and then I'd start to build up with the siennas. You've got burnt sienna at 10%, and I'd start to add a little bit of a darker colour. A little bit all over, but focusing on the areas of shadow. This is how I built up this bit. And then I would build that up slowly, adding different colours in, until I feel that I've got an okay colour, albeit grainy, and you get the basics of the form. So you've got a highlight under the eye, you've got a highlight at the top of the eyebrow, you've always got a little bit of a highlight here, and then you've got a dark area around the hair. That's always the darkest, and you can go in with your ochres and darken up. And then the tip for skin, that for me is a game changer, is, so this is pink white, I'm just trying to find my colours. Buff Titanium, love it, fantastic colour. Think about where the highlights are and where the shadows are with the skin. Can you see how grainy that is? That's partly because of the texture of the paper, and partly because of the just the technique that I've used. Now for skin and eyes and fruit, anything that's smooth, even kind of different textures on animals' paws or their noses, then this technique works really well. I would go in with, I wouldn't go in with a white because it would knock everything flying. I would go in the darker parts with, I've got a light flesh, which is brilliant. And I've also got my Prima Rose, and I'm looking for an ochre. I seem to have lost it. Oh, here it is. Sorry about the noise again. I've got my pencils in a jar. Drop one on the floor. I've got my, where is it? I think I'm going to use my buff titanium to begin with, and then we can build up. There you go, I've got my burnt ochre. So this is great. So this is a technique I would use with skin. For a highlighted area, look how grainy this is. You are going to go in and you're going to go in with a light colour in the light areas and a slightly darker colour in the darker areas. And you're going to layer over the top. And what that does is you're not burnishing because you're not pressing so hard that you're flattening the tooth. But what it does is it smooths the skin, and you can use this technique with, like I said, eyes, fruit. So take your time, circles, going round and around, covering that area. I want the top of this eyebrow to be kind of highlighted, so I'm going to use this colour here. Can you see how that's smoothing the skin? Might need a little bit of pressure in some areas, and then as it goes darker I'm going to use a darker colour, so that kind of makes sense, doesn't it, to do the same thing, to smooth and to blend. Pressing slightly harder because it's a darker colour, I can, because I know that I am only going to add darker colours on top. So you really start pushing a little bit harder just to blend, and then you can add to that transition in the middle, because we don't want a line. It's showing up as a line on the camera. It's not so much of a line in real life, but can you see how that's smoothing the skin away? Adding a little bit of darkness here, and you can always add colours over the top, so you can glaze. Look at the difference though. Going over a little bit more. Because I'm not pressing really hard, I know that I can then darken up even more with, I've got my dark flesh, so I can add some more shadow. Oh, I'm not even seeing what I'm doing. Adding some shadow. And then going back in with the buff titanium and blending that transition again. So can you see the difference between that skin, the camera's still picking up a bit of graininess, which actually in real life it's not, and this skin? I'm going to have to come out a little bit because it's not focusing. How annoying is that? There you go. So can you see the graininess there? And it's smooth look here. For a child, because they've got such a lighter complexion, I would still go in. There is actually white only in the lightest highlight, but in the luminance range they've got something called a pink white, which just has a little bit of warmth to it, and you could use that for a child definitely. And for the yeah, that works really well. Look at that, just a transition between the two, so you can get that kind of smooth skin finish. You have to go over a few times. Look at that skin compared to that. I'll just show you over here so you can kind of see it happening. Look how it softens the graininess, and it blends all of the colours. It's almost a little bit like magic. It's like alchemy. Blends everything and smooths everything out. You've gone over with the burnt sienna underneath, but it's not going to knock it out completely because there's a bit of warmth in this colour, and then you can add colours over the top to darken up again. Can you see how that's smoothed the cheek nicely? and got rid of the graininess. All around here. You want to soften this part because that's looking really weird. Again, you can go over the top to darken it up again, but adding to the highlight. And just softening that part under the eye. I need to soften the eye as well, really. This is a really awful portrait drawing. Can you see how that smoothed the skin? You see how that's looking a lot smoother. So this obviously applies to fruit and eyes and leaves. That's the technique that I would use to soften everything. Doesn't that look a lot more realistic, the skin? Does that make sense? I realise with skin tones it's very challenging to do dark skin tones. Any suggestions, ideas? There's some amazing colours, I'd say, in the Luminance collection. And I would go with all of the umbers, and what you're just doing is just building up. There's lots of reddy browns, there's lots of kind of ochres in there. You use the siennas and the the brown ochres. These are amazing, just building them up. You've got, with the Luminance range, you've got the 10% and you've got the 50%, and it's just fantastic that you can build up the colours beautifully. You've got these lovely warm brown colours that would go really well with a darker skin tone, brown ochre. And you've got a darker brown ochre, so you've got the brown ochre, it's not even written on there. Just had to collect a second-hand set of... Oh, how exciting! That's a good reason to be late, definitely. And you can always catch the beginning on replay. Lots of burnt siennas. The dark, when I said about yesterday with the Luminance pencils, they've brought out a portrait set and they've got some beautiful colours in there. I use probably all of them now. You've got some lovely sepias as well for the shadows. Oh, thank you, Julie. That's really kind. Does that make sense with the skin? I hope. Give that a go. Give it a try and see how you get on with that, because it takes a little bit of practice to not go overboard with the layers to begin with, and you might feel that you need to keep adding just to pink things up or darken things or shadow. You will find around the hair line that there's a much more intense shadow. It needs to be a lot darker than I've done it here. And so I would have to go back in and add a few more layers just to darken everything. So you can have a play. See how that kind of makes the forehead stand forward a little bit. And I would definitely have to darken all around here a little bit more. You can keep tinkering and playing forever, can't you? Right, the hair. Now, hair is quite amazing because actually, especially with curls, and I think you can apply this to animal curls as well, if you've got a curly dog, that every curl is a masterpiece in itself. It has a range of lights and darks, sometimes within one area. This phone is awful. I need to get a better phone. So can you see how the hair sits in clumps? It doesn't sit in individual hairs. If you were to draw every individual hair or every individual curl, then you would end up with like a spaghetti, stringy looking hair. If you look at your own hair, or if you look at anyone who's got kind of curly or wavy hair, you can see how it lies in clumps. And you will find that the light will catch it in some areas, and then there will be a shadow in other areas. What I've done to create this hair, and I'm going to go over it a little bit more, is that I've again gone in with the lightest colour that I can see, and I went in with the ivory, and then I've built it up with the brown ochres. And this definitely isn't finished, this section, so I would go in and I would use longer pencil strokes, and I would map out where the dark parts are. So I'm going to show a little example to start again, just so you understand what I mean. Where's my ivory? So I'm going to make up this curl, but I'm going to kind of follow a little bit of the reference. So go in with the lighter colour, then I would go in with a slightly darker colour, and I would start to map in where the shadows are and kind of the direction that the hair is taking. Now, it's not going to be one line, it's going to be quite a few, and there's going to be darker sections within that, and there's going to be parts that just stand out as a highlight. You might need to come across with that. And I'm mapping out with a light colour so that I know that if I make a mistake, I can go in with my kneadable eraser and just soften everything. So I'm just going to map in the shape of a curl, adding the shadows, and I'm using longer lines. And then some of the hairs come off of that section, and then there's definitely a dark section underneath. I'm just going to add that in. This is completely made up. I'm just going to add that in. So what I'm doing, can you see what I'm doing? I'm going to leave the highlighted parts, and I'm going to darken where these shadows are. One thing to watch with hair and curls on an animal is that if you start adding the shadows in, which is quite a big shadow here, I'm going in with the walnut brown. So I know there's a shadow in there, so I'm quite confident in putting that shadow in. And then there's quite a dark shadow here. So you're putting the darkest parts in, but next to a dark part, there is a mid-tone. It's very rarely going to go from light to dark unless you've got a piece of hair completely highlighted sitting on top of a dark shadow that's going under her neck. But most of the time you've got this mid-tone, so you need to soften your shadows against your highlights. It's never going to go light to dark, very, very rarely. So I would add a little bit more lightness, more of a base tone, soften those pencil strokes. I would add to the shadow section, get that a little bit darker, and I'm using longer pencil strokes, and I'm following the direction of the fur, so used to saying fur, and following the direction of the hair and coming across into the highlight, because we can always add a little bit of lighter over the top to blend. So you can see how there's more of a delicate transition between the two. This section is definitely darker, but I'm going to add some of that coming across into the rest of the hair as well. Does that make sense? It takes quite a few layers. Going back over with the light. And then going back over with the dark, long pencil strokes. And actually you'll find that even within that hair, there's an even darker section that needs to come in, because that section is lying underneath that one. So there might be a dark section within the hair. See what I mean about it being a masterpiece in itself? There's so many different colours. It's almost like every little section of hair has got so much going on. Using the ivory again, so going back over, adding to the darkness. Might be a shadow coming in here. You see how that's starting to build up in colour, and that's what I was doing. That was the technique I use to get this result. And this isn't actually finished, but this is the technique I would use. I'd come across into the highlight a little bit more. Oh, I'm gonna have to plug my phone in a sec. It's running out of battery. It's because I'm talking too much again. Plug you in. It's not actually registering. I hope that's okay. We're not going to switch off. If we do, I'll have to go to my laptop. So with this hair, this is where I would then add, use the Tombow Mono. So I would pull up some of the highlights with the Tombow, and you can pull across and you can take some of the pigment off and add flyaway hairs. You can add to the highlights by just lifting up. Same here, look, you can go around and follow where the sun or the light would hit, so you can take up some of the pigment. That's when a brush is good, because it just takes that away. And you can use your slice tool to add some flyaways, and it really works. I've already done it on this, so you can see I've added some flyaway hairs. Some of them come over the top of the dark. Adding them here. So just scraping up some of the pigment just in the highlighted areas, and it makes it look so much more realistic. Do you do sections? Definitely, yeah. I think it's just so hard to do it all in one go. So I did this section here, and then I moved on to that section before I, after I'd finished that almost completely. It's always a little bit of a trial run when you're starting out with new colours or a new portrait, because actually it's a bit of trial and error and you don't quite know how they're going to lay down together. You might pick a wrong colour, and then you're learning every time, because muscle memory, you're getting used to a portrait. So what you've learnt in this section you can then take into that section, and you've got all the pencils in front of you and you know which ones work, which ones don't, and how well they lay down together. So it's always a little bit of a case of trial and error, learning and just experimenting a bit and being brave. Does that make sense? Let me just see if I've covered everything. We talked about glazing, didn't we? We talked about, so you could use it in this technique as well. So if you really look at where the shadows are, you could go in with a nice brown colour and use the burnt umber, and maybe this shadow needs to be intensified a little bit. So I'd use a small circle technique, and I would just add a very, very fine layer over the top. And then what that's going to do is it's going to make this section pop forward and this section pop forward, and this look like it's sitting behind. So you can glaze over the top, you can add a little bit more pigment here, darken up that darkest part and just make it pop a little bit more. Does that make sense? Such a simple technique with the Tombow, and yet I mean, I couldn't be without this. Definitely not. I use it for absolutely everything, and it's amazing how much pigment you could actually lift. I'm going to actually come across this brown section just to show you how many layers have I added, and look how much it lifts off. It actually takes quite a lot away. There's always going to be a bit of a stain underneath, but if you have made a mistake, then you can definitely go in and make little alterations, and that looks like a flyaway hair over the top now. Thank you, that was so awful to me. So awful to me. Need to do redo all my awful. I'm sure you're not awful. Hang on, such a simple. That was. Do you mean useful? Predictive text. It's a nightmare, isn't it? Some of the things I've sent to people, because my phone has just decided that it wants to change the word without telling me. It's very, very embarrassing. So fur techniques we've done. Just one thing I wanted to say about shine. And this really applies to the black dog, the black eye. If you've got an area of shine, I built that up with all of the greys. Always make sure that you add some of the darker tones into it so that it sits nicely, so that it's cohesive, so that it works together. Otherwise it just looks like it's standing out way too much. It just looks fake. So make sure in the lightest parts you add little specks of dark fur too, just to make it all sit together. Does that make sense? Add shadows. Light hand, yeah, we've talked about pressures. The curls, having the mid-tones in, as well as the shadows and the highlights, using the Tombow Mono and the slice tool. or a craft knife, if that's what you've got. Skin, wax-based pencils are the best, and then you can add polys or oil-based pencils over the top, and definitely for detail like an eye, they are fantastic for. Does anybody have any more questions about any of the techniques? Feathers. Oh yeah, feathers. What I would say about feathers is that it's a bit of a combination. I'm trying to hold my phone because I've got you plugged in and so I can't sit it down. The feathers, I would use a very, very similar technique to the eye, as in you need to almost get a little bit of a smooth iridescence on it, but you've also got a bit of texture to it. Maybe I'll do a feather tutorial. I was thinking about doing a couple of workshops and maybe really focusing on something specific. I did say that at the beginning, didn't I? So it's hard to kind of describe. I'm going to have to buy some pencils. I think I'm going to have to buy some new pencils as well. All of the pencils I've heard about, they just sound amazing. Yeah, feathers, I would use the technique where you lay down the base colours, then you would build up with the other colours, and then you would use a lighter colour to blend and smooth. Because with feathers, actually, it's quite important to get a shine on them, on some of them, not all of them. And really have a look at your reference photo and see which ones have got that shine to them. You might find that it is only shiny a certain part, but that's where pushing down with a bit firmer pressure on something like we did with the skin gives a smoother, softer finish. Does that make sense? I think I might have to do a feather demonstration at some point. Does anybody have any other questions about, let me turn you around again. Take my glasses off. I'm going to put you back on here. Anybody have any other questions about any of the techniques that we've used today? I know it's an awful lot to take in, and I imagine that I haven't covered or even half of all of the things that that you can do with colour pencils. They are just amazing. I am totally new and would welcome any guidance you provide. It's fabulous to watch you. Oh, thank you so much. That's really kind. I'm just going to get rid of my reference photo and go back to my Facebook page just so I can read the comments. No questions, just say thank. Oh, that's really kind of you. I really hope you enjoyed that. I really hope it gave you some helpful tips on your fur techniques, your skin, your hair. They're all different, but they all have a kind of underlying similarity in the fact that you lay your light colours down and then you build up and then you either smooth or add more detail. So it's just the end point that is different, really. Sorry, I bombarded you with cat eye pictures soon. No, not at all. I love that you're asking questions. It really, it kind of directs things, which is all. I'd love a list of colours and brands for flesh. Yes, I think I need to do that, don't I? I need to think about which colours we use. Hopefully the techniques will translate. I hope so too. I'm sure they will. I think it's a little bit overwhelming to possibly do them all at the same time. I've bombarded you with information, and I've bombarded you with 5 years worth of information over the course of 3 days in a couple of hours. So it's definitely something that we'll probably need to come back to, and I might run another one of these workshops in the very near future. Brilliant to see how you begin. Oh, I'm glad it's helping. What subject would you start colouring first? I would pick something that gives you that feeling of just thinking, I just want to try it. Not having too much pressure, not having too much concern or worry about how it's going to turn out. It's more about the process and trying it out. My first drawing was the kingfisher I showed on the first day, and if you look at it up close, it's really not good, but I loved it. I enjoyed it so much. I was proud of it when I'd finished because it was my first drawing. I loved the colours. I loved the oranges and the blues together. I loved the fact that I'd created something that looked a bit like what it was meant to, and I just got this incredible feeling with the pencils. I just love them. So I think find something that catches your eye and that you really just think, oh yeah, I really want to draw that. Maybe you've got a favourite animal. I wouldn't suggest an elephant because they are really tricky with the wrinkles and stuff, unless you go for more of a softer look. But something that really catches your eye. So I was drawing birds to begin with because I felt that that was quite a good starting point. Maybe an eye study, because it's really great to have the different textures with the eye and the fur around it. So I would probably try a few eye studies. I wouldn't go for a complete drawing probably to begin with, unless a bird's a good starting point, I think, because the feathers are similar to fur, but you also can use a lot of different techniques with the blending and the iridescence and the making it look a bit smoother. So maybe a bird if you like birds. Maybe if you don't like birds, that's not a great suggestion. But if you do any separate workshops, me too, I love botanical drawing, and actually I've done quite a lot of botanical stuff in the past. I love to draw fruit and flowers. I like to draw a bit of a combination of both with the flowers and birds. Actually, if you are new to the group in the last week or so, you might not have seen my live draw-alongs that I did at Christmas. I started them at the beginning of December, and I did a puppy in graphite. It was over 3 days and it was about an hour a session, and I was talking about the different techniques of graphite pencil and how to create fur with graphite. So that's still available in the group, and I'm going to put it into a folder if I can. I also drew a robin in coloured pencils, start to finish. I didn't finish it actually. I finished it off screen, but I did that over 3 days, and you can see what I'm doing as I'm doing it, which colours I'm using, the different techniques for feathers. That's still in the group that I'm going to put in that folder. And I also I did some watercolours, a little watercolour scene. I did a pastel snowman, just a little fun project, maybe to do with the kids. And then I also did a holly berry, a couple of holly berries and a holly leaf. So that might be something that you could get some information and tips from. That's still in the group as well. So I'll put that all together in a little folder for you to have a look at. And maybe I could do a workshop with a flower or something. Maybe, I don't know, whatever flower that you like. A rose is quite complicated actually. But it's really good for shadows and highlights. So that might be something that we could do in the future. Definitely. Just reading through the comments. Any more questions? Don't forget to like or love, why like when you can love, the video, and comment. I've seen your lovely comments coming through. The worksheet today is actually a kind of brief description of some of the techniques that I've been using. I think I only covered fur and skin. I'm going to have a look at that. But what I'd love you to do is just have a little go and post that in the group, because there's nothing on the worksheet for you to do per se, but I would love for you to use the things that I put on the worksheet and then try it yourself. So maybe try going over in a little patch of fur, or maybe trying some of the wax-based pencils to get a kind of smooth skin colour and smooth skin look, as opposed to kind of like a grainy furry skin. That might be a really good technique. So if you could post that into the group with the hashtag, then that would be fantastic to see. And it also means that you're starting straight away and you're implementing these techniques, and also you can then ask me questions if you're struggling at all, which is what it's all about really. Folder would be really helpful. So I found the holly berry but couldn't find the puppy. Okie dokie. So I'll put all of those. I say it like it sounds easy. I think I know how to do that. I will try and do that after today's workshop, and so that might be really helpful. I do actually have a YouTube channel as well. I've uploaded these workshops to my YouTube channel, and they're quite old now. They're a little bit just trying to get to grips with the camera, and the editing's a bit dodgy, but you might find some helpful tips there. I've got quite a few videos. I've got things like shiny conker and tangerine. What else have I got? Different fur techniques. I've done skin, I've done eyes. You know, just have a little look and see if there's anything that you find helpful there. It's more of a place to store things, really. I found YouTube really helpful for that. So have a little look. Samantha Clift Art. Thank you. Love drawing eyes. So going to give it a go again. Go for it, Marie. go for it. Both of my passions were really interested in. Fur animals are not really for me. No, I can understand why, and I think I just like to try all of the different techniques and see. I think animals are my passion, birds as well, just any kind of wildlife. But I do like to try different things in different mediums too, and I think it just keeps it a bit interesting for me. And then I always come back to coloured pencils, and I always come back to animals and wildlife, always. 3 brilliant workshops, looking forward to the membership. Oh, that's fantastic, Paul. Lovely to hear that. Zest It, yep, Zest It. Zest It pencil blend. The Zest It's in really small letters and you can't really see it, and it's got like an orangey smell, like a very subtle orangey smell, so it's a bit nicer than harsh chemicals, and it's meant to be not toxic or anything. I'd still recommend a well ventilated room, have a window open or something. It might give you a little bit of a headache if you're sensitive, but it's definitely a brilliant thing to have in your toolbox as well as the other tools. So yes, the competition, I'm going to be sending a Tombow out and a kneadable eraser and the paper that I started out with and worked on for years and love. So I'm going to send that out. What I'm going to do is I'm going to collate all of the worksheet entries, likes and comments, and then put you into a wheel. And I'm hoping to do that on kind of Sunday, Monday, so it gives you a few days to get things done. You don't have to worry about catching up. It gives you a few days to do that, and I'm going to announce the winner on early next week, maybe Sunday, Monday, all depending on how the homeschooling goes really. If you are thinking about joining the membership and you're waiting to see if you win the competition, if you are already a member, then I will refund you the month's membership, so you will always get a month free regardless of whether you join the membership or not. I just wanted to have a little bit of time to talk about, I've been blabbing on again, my goodness, talk about the membership quickly. It's just something that I'm really passionate about. If you are feeling like you would like to be part of a community, that you would like a bit of support, that you would like to be able to ask questions if you have them, to have me there, to be able to ask anything, no matter how small, and me to be able to answer, to feel like you are being supported and I've got your back, that you're not, because art can be a bit isolating. You're sitting at your desk or your easel and you are alone. And you know, I'm an introvert. I quite like my own company. I'm quite okay finding things to do. I would never be bored on my own, but there is a limit to the amount of time that you should spend isolated. It's not good for anyone, no matter what your personality is. And I've really been craving seeing my family, talking to my friends, and obviously none of us can do that right now. And it's so difficult. It's so, and the phone is not the same, is it? A video call or whatever. It's not the same as real life and having that physical contact, a hug, or you know. So actually, we need to connect in which way we can right now, and that is via online at the moment. But it's you know, it's the next best thing. It's all we've got, and in the future, when COVID's over, when it eventually will be, then I would like to do some in-person meetups, and I would like to actually have a real community of actually getting together and we can talk about all things art. How great would that be? I'd like to do some Zoom calls so I can actually see your faces and find out what you're doing. I crave that connection, and I'm an introvert and I like my own company, and if I'm craving it, then I know other people will be too, and probably even more so than me. What else do I want to say about the membership? The other thing I wanted to add, which I didn't mention yesterday, is that if anyone's looking to earn a little bit of extra money from their art, if you're looking to possibly taking art to the next level and actually having a career or a little bit of extra money from it, maybe you want to start commission-based artwork, maybe you've got dreams of being an artist as your full-time job, then I'm adding art business videos into the membership every month as well. Just little tips that I picked up over the years to help you to grow your following, to be more visible, to start selling, tips on commissions. I've got a massive list of things that I'm going to be talking about, and I'm adding videos every month to the membership on that as well as a Pilates video, Pilates yoga, because I'm a trained instructor, and I think look after your mind, body and soul all together. You don't obviously have to do the videos, but they are there for you if you struggle with your wrists or your neck or your shoulders, or just want a little bit of time out. I'm putting visualization, meditation videos in to calm the mind, and they might be a nice little exercise to do before you start drawing, just a little bit of an add-on to it. I'm also going to be talking about mindset videos. I'm a trained hypnotherapist, and I'd like to add some of those skills in, as well as all of the art tutorials that I'm going to be adding. I'm going to be doing a big one every month where you get to finish a piece, but that's there only if you want to. I'm going to be doing smaller pieces, sketchbook projects, and talking to everyone. I think I'm going to be adding more smaller bite-sized tutorials as well, so much less intimidating if you're just starting out, and also a really good way to practice your techniques without being overwhelmed by a massive piece of work. How does that sound? In a coffee shop, yeah, definitely, or a pub. Yeah, over a glass of wine, that sounds lovely to me. Passion, definitely animals, especially wild animals. Can't wait to get pencils, etc. and start. Holding thumbs, I can start soon. Plus meditation, fantastic bonus. Had to give up a few. Yeah, well, this is exactly why I have really changed direction when it comes to my artwork. I started out as a commission artist, and I was a Pilates instructor, massage therapist and hypnotherapist, therapist full-time, working around the children. And when COVID hit in March, everything stopped. I had to stop seeing clients, I couldn't take classes, and it was a bit scary. And I thought, you know, it's actually a chance to reflect and think about, what do you really want to do going forward? I turned 40 this year, and I think it's a bit of a turning point. What do I want to do for the next 20 years of working, 25 years? And this has always been at the back of my mind. It's something I've always wanted to do. I love art, I love everything about it, I love the way it makes you feel, and I want to share that with other people. And if I can help people to fast track their skills, to feel good, to feel inspired, to get that creativity flowing out of you that's definitely in you. We've all got that in us, and you're all artists. No matter what you create, no matter how good you think it is, it's all art and it's all amazing. Please never feel worried about thinking that your art isn't good enough to show in the group. I think we've proved that we are a lovely community. They're all so friendly, and people generally, I think as a rule, want to lift people up. I don't think there's many people in life that really want to put anybody down, and if they do, then they're probably working through a few issues of their own that maybe they need a little bit of help with. And I think you need to be a bit compassionate about that. But most people, on the whole, want to lift each other up, because we rise when we lift others too. And I think there's nobody in the group that is going to say anything horrible. They're all a lovely, lovely bunch of people, and it does give you faith back into humanity and community. I am blown away by the results of all of the people in the group. I have been overwhelmed by all of the lovely comments that you comment on each other's work, and all of the support that you're showing to each other, and really giving people kind of a real lift and a real boost in this really rubbish time that we're going through right now, which will only get better. I'm very optimistic about that. We are coming through it now, but we hopefully need to learn a lot along the way as well. We need to learn from what's happened. I think that's important, to learn the lessons. There's always a silver lining, no matter how awful it is. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking, because I'm going to go on again for hours. My husband is upstairs with my kids, trying to keep them entertained. If you have any more questions about the membership, then you can either send me an email or a message, or we can even get on a call if you want to talk to me in person, or a video call. My pleasure, my absolute pleasure. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got some helpful tips. How do we get a discount at the Colour Pencil Shop? Join the membership. Emma, lovely Emma, is offering that to my members. She's just joined the membership, so that's just an extra bonus that's going to be thrown into people in the Discovering the Artist Within You membership. And what a bonus that is. What a lovely lady. I'm going to go through the comments. I'm going to go away now and upload this footage to the computer. It does take a few hours, which is why it takes so long. So I can get that running while I do other things, and it will hopefully go up similar time to yesterday, about 2:30ish, 3 o'clock-ish. I think that's the earliest I can get it up. I don't think I can do it any earlier. Thank you, Sam, and also your lovely husband. I know, what a star. Thank goodness. I booked this membership. Well, I planned this workshop, these workshops in before we had lockdown. So I'd committed to it and I wanted to do it. And so I said to Adam, oh, can you take some time off work? And he said, yes, of course. So he is amazing. You'll catch up later. Thank you so much for watching. Lovely to see you. Go away and practice some of the techniques that we've been doing. I would really love to see it, and I look forward to seeing you very, very soon. I might even pop into the group in the next couple of days and answer some of the frequently asked questions. I might do that in a live, but I will keep you posted and let you know when that's happening. Lovely to see you all. Have a good rest of